guys, and welcome back to this new video. So today we are going to talk Zetian, and this is like a very intricate story of how a woman started off from rock bottom, being a fifth-tier concubine of an emperor, and became the only empress of China. So let's start. As we said, Wu Zetian was 13 years old and she became a fifth-tier concubine of the Emperor Taizong. Now, she was not known to perform sexual activities with him. Rather, she started to get noticed in different ways. For instance, she would talk to him about history while changing the bed sheets, or she would manage his horses, right? And she would tame them for him in different ways. The violent nature of Wu Zetian appeared immediately from their first activity, because she would tame first in a way that was like kind of docile, using the normal techniques that were deployed at the time, but then eventually, she would kill the ones that were more resistant to her teachings or to her training. So there's kind of a violent nature that appears. She was very young, and she became a concubine when already the emperor was pretty old. And when the emperor died, the rule was that unless you had children with the emperor, then you should become a Buddhist nun. Then you should become a Buddhist nun. And that is what happened for many of the concubines of the emperor Taizong, but not for her. There were, technically speaking, two ways not to become a Buddhist monk. Way number one is to escape from the convent you're being secluded in. Way number two is to be called back by the emperor. So the allegation here on how she came back to court was probably that she started an affair while being the concubine for Taizong with the new emperor which was Cao Song, and he was her pseudo stepson. But it gets way more intricate than this, right? So she was back at a court, but she wasn't really in the first position, and Cao Song was married to Wang. Wang herself called Wu Zetian and asked her, "Please, can you stop my husband flirting with that concubine, with that mistress?" I mean, emperors had many mistresses, right? But sometimes one would pop up that was like the main mistress, right? And the main mistress had ways to acquire more power, one of which was probably to get pregnant. Wu Zetian was like, "Sure, no problem, do not worry, let me handle this." And she herself became the main mistress. So much so that she had 3 children in a row. The first was born in 652, the second in 653, and the third in 655. Now, when Wang discovered that, she was completely disappointed and enraged. And what you do when you are disappointed and enraged is you plot against what has become the emperor's main mistress, meaning Wu Zetian. However, Wu Zetian had her ways. When the third daughter in 655 was born, she was born and she lived very shortly. Unfortunately, she died. She died apparently for what seems to have been strangulation. So, Wu Zetian used her loss, her child's death, in her favor and imprisoned Wang and the main mistress Xiao. So we are at the point where she imprisoned them, and then eventually that led to execution. The execution of those two women for witchcraft and for killing her daughter would be something that would torment her, apparently. She would see their ghosts all the time. However, that didn't stop or slow down Wu Zetian. She is, and this is like later historians and later enemies, she is depicted though as a bloodthirsty woman that wanted blood and power. And so since 655, the moment of the death of her own daughter, she started to pave the way for her power. How to increase power? The manual prescribes to kill the chancellor. So there was a chancellor, Zhang Wei, and she accused him of treason and eventually, sent him to exile. The exile, though, wasn't enough. This would be a recurrent move of Wu Zetian. She would send people in exile, then she would send visitors to that person in order to convince them to commit suicide. And so Zhang Wei committed suicide. And then she could officially take power. Officially, however, nature seemed to go against her, in a sense that when she took power, there was a big earthquake in China, and that was conceived by people at court and by Buddhist monks as a terrible omen of what was about to happen. There was though a mountain that popped up from that earthquake, and this mountain, she renamed it Sumeru, which is the name of a mountain in the paradise for Buddhists, and then called the mountain Mount Felicity. So she was like a wonderful PR for herself. Anyway, she got into power, so she started ruling, right? And the way to do that, first of all, is symbolic. Symbolic in the sense that she started wearing yellow robes. Now, yellow was the color only for emperor, not really for empress. But she would wear these luxurious yellow robes to show her power. She would sit at the council where Cao Tong would sit behind this screen of pearls, and she would listen to the conversations, getting involved in the policies of her husband. And of course, when rumors started circulating that Cao Tong had impregnated a woman, one of his favorite concubines, guess what? The woman, was poisoned. So, no trace of her. Now, the two ruled uniformly like a couple, so much so that they were known as two saints. So to make visible that their power was only shared power, was power in communion. And Wu Zetian made that further clear by not only eliminating a couple of enemies here and there, but also members of her own family. So there are a couple of stories here. The first is that she sent into exile her own two brothers. The story goes like that the nephew of her mother, so means he had a relationship, and the brothers were pretty much upset to the choice of their mother, meaning Lady Young, to have this sexual relationship with her nephew. But Wu Zetian appeared to be like very very much in favor of the relationship, so sent the brothers into exile, but then took a revenge on Min's He, saying you cannot really have a relationship with your grandmother, my mother, therefore I'll send you in exile and then I'll kill you. And that's how you do things, apparently. And this might have been a plot entirely since the start orchestrated by her to eliminate Minzi. Now, eliminate Minzi the same way she had eliminated Lady Wei, by poisoning her, since she apparently was starting to become a favorite mistress of her husband. And when her husband died, that was the moment where Wu Zetian expressed all her power and also all her feminism. For instance, she decided that a group of women could take part in rituals that were up until that point in time reserved only to men. That women could marry and also get divorced, which was the big deal there. And then they had equal rights. So you would cry for 3 days when a man died, but 1 day when the woman died. And she decided that women had the same right to be cried that men had, and therefore the number of days should be equal. But she also made a bunch of reforms for which she is very much loved and remembered in a positive way. For instance, because she was eliminating so many people in her court, she decided to hire people from normal people to go and work for government, right? And so to do that in a way that was meritocratic rather than by reputation or because they belonged to a certain family. Also, she was eliminating so many people at court that was kind of like necessary. Also, we know that under her 22 years of regime, China agricultural output doubled, and that she get the economy going in a way that China hadn't seen before. She also appointed a prime minister that was a woman. That had never happened before. However, that woman was killed, assassinated. And she made a bunch of reforms that were considered very positive in general for the economy especially, right? Now, it's true also that she established a snitch line. So you had all over the cities copper boxes, right? So people would complain about a certain official, and that official would get removed, so fired, of course, but also he would get probably executed or imprisoned, right? So that didn't help the environment, you know, to establish a friendly environment. She also had established a secret police in 686. And she oversaw the successful expansion of China's territory in Central Asia with the reopening of the Silk Route. So she did all of that. However, her own succession was quite complicated. So she had more than one son. So the first in line was Li Heng. Now, Li Heng made a terrible mistake, tried to liberate the daughters of Xiao. Remember that Xiao was the main mistress of her husband when her husband was alive, before she came into picture. And actually that's how she came into picture. And she had killed Wang and Xiao, but now her daughters were imprisoned and Li Xian liberated them. Now, of course, she did not like that at all and didn't like that her own son was not following her steps, and therefore she decided to send him to exile. Then was the path of Song Hong, and also he wanted his own path. However, that was not feasible for Wu Zetian, so she sent also him into exile. And then finally, Li Dan 690, which was the one that ruled exactly like her mother wanted. However, in 690, her mother decided she could do much better by being in power, so she eliminated him from power and came back as the Empress regnant. So, in all of that, her attempt to center her power in her own hands was very successful by basically making her grandchildren committing suicide, by proclaiming herself as Maitreya, who was a major symbolic Buddhist figure at the time and in Buddhism, and also by taking up lovers, especially the Sun brothers. They were her favorites, and they unfortunately got killed when she died. Now, she also apparently seems to have regretted at a certain point in her life, before 705, some of the things she had done in her 20 years or in her 22 years of kingdom. So much so that she wrote on golden tablet part of her sin. So her sinful nature seems to have been proved by that golden tablet. She wrote it and then she threw it down from a mountain. However, around 1300 years later, that golden tablet was found by a peasant, by a farmer, and went back to light. She died in 705, and apparently she died, and as usual custom, they made a stele for her, like a wooden slab, like a slab where she was buried. Now, archaeologists know where she is buried. However, they haven't found a way to access to the burial site without ruining completely the infrastructure and architecture that is built around. So they haven't found properly her body. However, what we know is that on the wooden slab there is no inscription, and this is a bit weird. Why? Because normally you would have an inscription with the writings of what that emperor or empress has done. However, on the slab you could read nothing at all. Some say because her enemies wanted people to completely forget about her. Other people, though, have suggested the idea that she herself didn't want any inscription. That is because people must have remembered her and everything that she had done for them, and because her glory and power was so great and so much that people will remember her. And if that was her plan all along, she is correct, because people still remember Zetian and her enterprises, endeavors, killings also, but something good she also has done for China and for the expansion of China. And with that being said, guys, that is it. So I hope I have entertained you with the story, biography of Wu Zetian, and we'll talk another time with a new story, with a new video. So don't forget to comment below, let us know your thoughts on Wu Zetian, whether or not you knew her and you are familiar with her work, and also, of course, if you have enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you can receive our new updates. We'll talk next time. Bye!